This is Space Cat's Peace Turtles, the unofficial podcast for Fantasy Flight's Twilight Imperium. Episode 30, GenCon Interview with Blarknob. Music by Ben Prunty, featuring Matt Martins and Hunter Donaldson.
Welcome to Tournament Talk, serious Twilight Imperium discussion, sports analyst, Hunter Donaldson.
Come on down to sports radio time. We're here with Hunter and Matt.
Monday Night Twilight. Monday Night Twilight.
Are you ready for some Twilight?
All right, so this is the serious sports tournament interview with the serious sports interview guy, and that's us.
I'm here with Jerry Carey, brother of Harry Carey. We're here to talk through the game.
Don't force me to
rehash.
do.
I'm not. No, you're Jerry. You don't have to do a Harry Carey voice.
Right,
this is his brother, Jerry.
All right.
We're here at the
Yeah, but now you've kind of invited
Mechatol Stadium. Mechatol Stadium. I wish we had any knowledge of real sports.
Yeah, that actually would be useful for doing a sports bit.
Yeah.
Having any sort of knowledge about sports and how it works, like what they do with the ball.
Yeah.
Like, is the ball like a command counter that they spin to do an action, and the action is like, you know,
to score
or to tackle
or
like whatever.
Right.
Yeah, no, we don't get it. Hockey, we like hockey.
We like hockey, don't we?
We do love hockey.
We do, boy.
That's not really true, actually. I don't watch it anymore.
No, I don't watch it at all. We've even got a channel in our Discord that's just called Hockey or whatever.
Yeah.
And it is muted.
That's for other people, not for
That
us.
is, you know who does take part in takes in the hockey talk?
We found our way.
We found our transition. Blarknob is our guest today. We did a lovely little interview with Michael. Today, because he's the king of sports, he is also the king of the GenCon Tournament. And the sign-ups for the GenCon Tournament are next week. They're on Sunday, May 6th. You guys can sign up for the GenCon Tournament. If you're already signed up, get signed up for GenCon first, but then here we go. It's time, folks. If you want to be in our GenCon video...
Yeah, if you want to meet me and Matt.
Stop it.
It's a fan meetup.
Boy, it's all about us, isn't it?
It is.
No.
If you want to get to play with me and Matt watching you, me and Matt are going to watch you play.
If you want to be in a situation where we observe you quietly from the corner and then
film you
and awkwardly interview you, here's your chance, folks.
It's not going to be awkward. I've never been awkward in my life ever. Even when I was born.
Came out just, how's it going, Mom?
Yeah,
thanks for everything.
My first words were, "What's up?"
Hey, everybody! Pew, 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 guns.
Good to be out.
Man, I've been doing time for 9 months in there. Let me tell you, it's rough.
What's weird about this intro is that we don't have to record an episode after this, so I feel like we're going long on the intro, which is bad. But
yeah, I'm gonna edit it out somewhere.
That's good.
I'm gonna find one of these bits that was worth losing.
We had a very good conversation with Michael.
We did.
Loved talking to the guy. Any longtime listeners will probably recognize Blarknob from...
Yeah, or any longtime fans of TI.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've been a part of forums for the past any amount of time, you have had some sort of encounter with Blarknob.
That's true. He's probably played more than, dare I say, Christian T. Peterson.
He's probably played more...
I don't even think Ev has ever played the game.
No, probably not. He runs the GenCon Tournament. He has played a lot of TI, has a lot of experience with TI, and as with us at the tournament, we'll not be taking part. But we wanted to sit down with him and get our heads wrapped around what the tournament would be like, what to expect, kind of his experience with the game as well. Just kind of meet Blarknob a little bit because, for all intents and purposes, it's kind of his brainchild. Him and his brother and some of his friends or whatever. There were sort of tournaments before they took over, but never in a no, we are dedicated to making this happen. So we wanted to figure out how all that came to be. So what you're about to listen to is that interview with Blarknob. I did want to say off the top, there was one thing that he forgot to mention in the interview that he wanted to make sure was included in there, was that like we said, the signups are May 6th. There are 2 different events that you will have to sign up for. Both of those are the 2 preliminary rounds. So there's one on Thursday, there's one on Friday. If you want to be a part of the tournament, one of those 2 events is the ones you want to look for. So if you see one and it is filled up, do not think that the other one is definitely already filled up. There are 2 separate events that you might need to sign up for. That also means do not sign up for both of them.
Right.
You will earn yourself 2 positions, and they will have to fix that, and that won't be good. So one of the preliminary rounds, the winners get 3D printed Warsun trophies in gold, silver, and glow in the dark. Those are the 3 prizes for the top 3 winners of the championship game.
Wait, so does third place get glow in the dark?
That's the coolest one, right? I just want that.
Everybody's gonna gun for third.
Right. Now maybe first place gets first choice.
Ah.
I don't know. I'm inserting myself into this problem that Blarknob will have to fix.
Well, that's awesome. 3D printed Warsun trophies.
It's pretty awesome. They're bigger than like a normal Warsun. It is a legitimate it's
the size of an actual
It's the size of a real Warsun.
In fiction.
You will have to buy a new planet.
Yeah, right. Well, actually, no, what's crazy is in fiction, Warsuns are actually only the size of beach balls.
Weird. I never had read that.
True.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Don't look at the concept art. That's all lies.
That's all lies.
They're just little beach balls
that can destroy a planet.
Yeah. And so that's why they're really scary, because it's like, I thought I saw
never saw it coming.
A little ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's quit rambling.
They can sustain damage.
Thank you. In that way, they are better than a beach ball.
Yes.
So let's cut. Let's shut the heck up and let's get over to our interview. How's it going, Michael? How you doing, buddy?
I am doing great.
Good. Glad to hear it. For those that are listening now and don't know, Michael is known as Blarknob. We've referred to him a lot on the podcast. Let's do similar to what we did with Dane. Michael, tell us about your history with Twilight Imperium and just kind of like where you're coming from.
Well, I have a long storied history with Twilight Imperium. I've been playing with my brother and various friends since first edition, right?
Wow.
So we started playing first edition, like way back. I think that would put me in high school. We played occasionally all the way through second ed. I've got some crazy stories from second ed. Mm-hmm. Third edition came out. I had a group of real close college friends, and we started playing more or less weekly from then on.
From the release of TI3 forward.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, so I've been blessed with a group of regular gamers. We've been playing TI3 regularly for a million jillion years.
Yeah, wow,
yeah.
No kidding.
And we've got a setup that lets us leave the game up.
Oh, I
at
see.
My one friend's place, so we can play over multiple nights, and
you can walk away from it and come back. Gotcha.
We started tournament play completely out of luck. So one year at GenCon, I'd been attending GenCon for many years. I'm a big Magic the Gathering player.
Okay.
And I'd been going almost purely to play Magic the Gathering, but we had this history of playing Twilight Imperium, and we saw that Fantasy Flight had actually registered a tournament event.
Whoa.
Right?
Do you know what year-ish this was?
Oh man, I'd put this maybe 10 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, TI3 came out 2005. So you've been playing weekly for 13 years. Let's just go ahead and put that out there. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's completely ridiculous. It is. We are outliers to the extreme of that. That's for sure.
Some amount of years after that, they decided to do their own tournament.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they didn't actually decide to do a tournament.
I see.
Whoever had registered the event had misregistered it in the GenCon system as a tournament. All right?
It was supposed to just be a pickup game, just a fun game of TI.
Yes. So Fantasy Flight, they have all of these just pickup games that they run all weekend in their area, and whoever had registered the event had misregistered it as a tournament.
Gosh.
So my brother and I and all these other people show up expecting to play a tournament, and Fantasy Flight has to open like 10 boxes of product. Okay, to support this thing, so they took a big bite on that.
Yeah.
Ran the tournament just completely ad hoc.
By the seat of their pants.
How are we going to run it?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll run it. We were literally, this is TI3, so we're literally popping ships out of the sprues in order to set up for the tournament.
Oh my gosh.
And so we had this super fun experience at this total ad hoc tournament. Fantasy Flight had some promo plastics that they had printed in years previous. They had gold, silver, and glow-in-the-dark
Wow.
plastic pieces, right? So we got these sets of plastic pieces, which just was super cool.
Right.
So after that experience, we were always looking for Twilight Imperium tournaments in years following.
Yeah.
And we didn't hit another one. I think, Fantasy Flight ran one more, and then the one that we played in together, right?
Yeah, right. So the story there is I went to Gen Con in like 2014, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And that was a year that it was organized just by this random guy, and he was like implementing all these house rules, and it was like very weird. Like it was basically not really set up as a tournament, but it was like in lieu of any other tournament. It was like, well, we'll try to throw something together just to have it.
It was TI3 with all the options.
Right, every single
Right.
thing included. Mercenaries, political intrigue.
Yeah.
All of it, yeah.
Oh yeah, it was all the rules plus some house rules.
Right.
Some weird thing with one of the Distant Suns tokens.
It was a Final Front. There's the Final Frontier token.
It's Final
where
Frontiers. That's right.
There's the space pirates, and you have to fight against the Dreadnought. He had a house rule where if you don't kill the Dreadnought, it accrues a trade good every single round, and someone else can sweep in and kill the Dreadnought and win all of its trade goods, which is like, okay, he's just...
Where did that even come
I know,
from?
what are you talking about?
Yeah, it was so strange. It was this like mountain of additional rules weight for like the narrowest of things.
Yeah.
It was so out there. So I've had these great experiences at the Gen Con tournaments.
Yeah.
And my brother and I sat down after this and decided, these haven't been happening consistently in Gen Con, and we'd like that to happen, and we'd like to implement a couple of things that would make the game a little more stable and a little more suited for tournament play.
Right.
So we contacted a friend of mine who's been running events at Gen Con with a group called Rogue Judges. They've been doing it for years and years, so like we had this base of support for the running of events and this group of guys who've been doing this for a long time very well that we could just slot right into and start running our event.
Let's skip ahead to like now. Let's talk about, for those listening that are interested in this year's TI4 tournament at Gen Con, what is, I guess first off, to a certain extent, just like what is Gen Con like? Because a lot of people maybe have never been to a board game convention but like are really into TI4 now and want to come. So maybe if you can lay out for us, how does someone sign up for your TI tournament? How do they get into it? What's the structure of it going to be? So what do they have to do to win the whole thing? How many rounds do they have to go through everything? What's just kind of like the structure and the timing of this whole this year's event?
Like the first thing you have to do to register for the tournament is get a Gen Con badge. So you can't go without having a Gen Con badge and being a Gen Con attendee. So you go to their website, you get yourself a badge, and then you register for one of the qualifying rounds. So we have 2 qualifying rounds across the week. We're playing Thursday morning at 8 a.m. and Friday morning at 8 a.m.
Okay.
So if you're not good with early hours, might not want to do it.
Yeah.
We get started bright and early on Thursday and Friday so that we have the time we need. The event registration opens May 6th. If you want to go look at the events, you can. Event listings are available as of last week, and registration for events opens May 6th.
Gotcha. So from there, you're signed up. You got to get whatever kind of housing you can get in Indianapolis, which can be kind of a chore in its own right.
Yes, it can.
So let's say I signed up for the Thursday morning game. What can I expect from the structure of this tournament? How many qualifying rounds are there? What does it lead to? When is the championship, etc.?
So there's only one qualifying round. So all you have to do to make it to the championship is win one game.
Okay.
Thursday and Friday morning will each have 3 tables. So you show up Thursday morning. We'll have all of our players who have registered for the Thursday morning qualifier. We will split you up randomly into 3 games and give you random seeding. So the winner of each qualifying game goes to the championship game on Saturday. That is Saturday at 1 o'clock. And each game actually has the qualifying games have a 6-hour time frame. If we are not finished at the end of 6 hours, we will call the time immediately. So one of our GMs will be sitting there with the watch, and right when we hit that 6-hour limit, we'll call the game and go to tiebreakers for the winner.
And that's going standard TI rules, as if we'd revealed the final objective, or we needed to reveal the final objective and couldn't. That's just whatever order we're in.
That's right. So it'll be the Imperium Rex tiebreaker rules.
Yeah, okay.
Right at time. So like if you're in the middle of saying something and doing an action and time calls,
too bad.
We're going to tiebreakers.
Yeah.
Too bad.
But that's not the case for the championship game, correct?
No, that's not the case for the championship. The championship we have essentially until GenCon kicks us out of the year.
Yeah. Which, for people who don't know, GenCon itself runs 24 hours a day. So that's literally, we have until end of day Sunday to finish that. So I think we'll be all right.
Yeah. And we do tend to finish these games faster than your kitchen table games will finish.
Because there's a moderator, right? There's someone kind of keeping flow of game.
That's correct. We've got 3 of us running the tournament, myself, my brother, and my friend Patrick, and you'll have one of us as a GM at each game. We do our best to keep the turns running smoothly. We will, make sure everyone knows whose turn it is, when turns have passed, and we're also there to act as referees. So whenever there's a rules question, we will be the final answer on it.
Dope. Could you take us through like the game setup, like as far as like picking factions, and like you said, everybody's already assigned like a random seating order. But could you take us through like galaxy creation and faction picking and stuff like that for each of the games?
This year, at least, being our first year running Twilight Imperium 4th edition, we won't be doing anything custom, right? So we're gonna do as much as we can by the book, and we will observe and see how things go if we need to change things in the future, right? But as it stands now, we'll be doing random seating. We'll do a random initial speaker. That initial speaker will get first pick on factions. Second guy in order will get second pick on factions. That's right. After we've got our factions, we'll build the board according to the book. So it'll be the competitive board setup.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good way to go, too, just considering, like you said, the very first year, I mean, and no one has had the game longer than, 5 months now? So it's not like any of us have, perfected any sort of method for tournament play. I think it'll take another year before we're really comfortable with what works really well. So I'm glad to see you guys kind of going strictly by the book and seeing kind of where the kinks fall into place after that.
Yeah, we sat down last year running the TI3 tournament. They announced TI4 on us. And
right.
We were just super excited and everything, and it was like, oh man, how are we going to do this, right? But we definitely went in. We wanted to do it fairly conservatively this year, and then anything that comes out and stands out as a problem after this year, we'll address. And we may do some things to make the faction selection a little more exciting.
Yeah.
In coming years, but that'll all be for the future.
Right. So jumping off of that, then we kind of have all the info then about this year's tournament. Let's kind of dig into some of that other stuff, so that maybe people who can't go to GenCon this year but will want to go in the future, maybe they can get an idea of what future iterations could be like. Can you run me through maybe some of the house rules that you guys did do for the TI3 tournaments, or just different organizational things you guys did to kind of fix some of the problems of TI3 and whatnot, or what your rule set was?
Yeah, sure. So a few of the things we had to address in a tournament setting, one of them simply being playtime, right? So Twilight Imperium is a long game, and we have to fit it into a con with a limited time slot.
Right.
And our initial time slot actually for TI3 was a 5-hour slot.
Yikes. Especially with TI3. TI4, that's possible, but TI3, that is a trial.
Yeah, we had to be pretty aggressive with changing the game to make it fit.
Yeah.
Right? So one of the things that we did, we used the Shattered Empire strategy cards.
Of course, the white cards.
That's right. And we replaced Bureaucracy with Imperial 2.
Yes. That is my favorite. Yeah, that is the best way to play TI3, for sure.
So what that allowed for, we also played with the objectives revealed from the start.
Right. I wouldn't mind eventually getting into doing that with TI4. I'm not interested in doing it for a while, but It was a different game to play that Age of Empire variant, all the objectives revealed.
Yeah, Age of Empire, it's a much more planning.
Yeah, it's a way more strategic game.
Yeah, and you get those huge swings and points because someone can, with Imperial 2, with the old TI3,
right,
could get like 7 points in a round out of nowhere.
Right, yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that would happen in the tournament. Like, you could have a game end like that. And in a setting where we only have so many hours to play, that's a great way to play. As long as everyone... And they all signed up for a tournament, so our assumption is you're on board to play this to win.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. No one's here for the Distant Suns thematics.
Yes, yeah. We're not going to upset someone who's role-playing their faction at a tournament. Right. There were a bunch of other things we did to help reduce the amount of time that the game took to play. One of the things we did, we went through the agendas and the action cards, and we took anything out that took it really long to resolve.
Right, yeah.
There used to be cards in TI3 that would let you search through the action card deck or search through the agenda deck.
Oh,
those were just out, right?
Right.
We also took out mystifiers, things that would lead to rules conflicts commonly. Even if we know how to resolve those rules conflicts,
right,
just having the conflict adds to the time. We would take out cards that we knew were a problem in that manner in TI3. Now, we won't be doing that with anything we found in TI4 so far, but...
Well, it's a tighter thing right now, too, right? I mean, in TI3, especially with both expansions, it was just, like, so many action... I mean, 200-plus action cards and, like, 100 or more agendas. It's a lot to have to sift through. How many optional rules were included outside of Age of Empire? Because a lot of optional rules take up time. I can't remember how many of them saved time.
Yeah, not many of them saved time. We definitely didn't play with the Shards of the Throne agenda phase. That was definitely not in there. Of the options, I know we left out Space Mines, we left out Leaders, we didn't play Mercenaries, we didn't play, political intrigue.
Right.
We definitely left out the old promissory notes. The implementation there was not fun in a
not anywhere
setting.
Close to how good TI4's is.
Yeah.
Artifacts?
We did play artifacts.
Yeah.
They added more points to the pool, made the game end faster.
Yeah.
Right?
Any Final Frontier tokens for you guys?
No.
Okay.
No. It was just, flip a thing, look up more stuff. It was just a little bit of time for not a lot of game.
Not a lot of game, for sure.
In our personal games, we actually did play with Final Frontier, but not in the tournament. It was, extra setup, just a little extra time.
Definitely.
We scratched that. We only had one house rule in the whole thing, and it was the way that bombardment interacted with mechanized units.
Oh, right. That? Of course, yeah. Where it's like it doesn't get to target them is, I think, the rules as written.
Yeah.
Approach,
the rules as written, mechanized units were essentially immune to bombardment.
Right.
And we made that not the case. So you could bombard away mechanized units. I think our other two balance, patches, we actually took out the old transfabrication tech and the old gravity drive tech. We weren't fond of what gravity drive and transfab did to the game.
Were there any other issues, maybe on a more meta side? Were there any policing things that you guys had to do within games to kind of prohibit certain types of player behavior, or anything like that kind of goes outside of the actual rules and systems of the game, but more tournament rules that you guys had to enforce?
Yeah, like floor rule kind of things.
Yeah.
We did have a few occasions where players left mid-game.
Oh, wow. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. The last year of the tournament, we had one guy just leave. And the way we handled that is if we have one player leave, the GM takes over. And if the GM happens to win, then the second place player just gets the qualifying seat. If we have more than that, we'll have to deal with that as it comes. I think we'll probably just go straight to tiebreakers at that point, because the game would be in an unfinished state.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
As far as player behavior, that we didn't really have any issues with anyone acting up or anything, but we do reserve the right to disqualify you and kick you out if you behave badly. Anything, obviously, that goes against the rules of the con.
Right. Have you guys ever had many issues with corroboration or anything like that? Just one player opting to not try to strive for victory in effort to just give someone else the win.
Yeah, okay. So the first year we ran the tournament, we actually gave qualifying seats to both the first and second place seat. We did an 8-player championship, and we did 4 qualifying games, so then first and second would both make it in.
Right.
And that immediately led to collusion, and we immediately regretted that decision.
Right. Gotcha.
So from then on, we went with just one winner, one seat at the table.
Yeah.
And that got rid of at least that kind of collusion within the table.
Sure.
Yeah. As far as policing collusion between players in order to get a seat at the top table, we obviously don't want the whole thing to break down into a game of which group colluded the best to get into the top.
Right.
The prize isn't really, it's not like we've got this big cash prize or anything, so we don't expect anyone to be that competitive with the collusion metagame. But, we also sit there, and Rogue Judges runs a diplomacy tournament next to us.
Oh, gotcha.
So we're fully aware of the effects of collusion on a tournament, but the experience they've had, we're also aware of how impossible it is to police.
Of course.
So
yeah.
Our basic idea is don't collude too hard.
Yeah, right.
And we're all out there having fun, even though we are trying to win.
Yeah, right. All right, how do you feel about support for the throne then, like in the sphere of like tournament play? Like what do you think about it?
Yeah, I'm interested to see what's going to happen this year, because it is not against the rules to hand someone that support the throne as their last point to win. Mm-hmm. And if we see a lot of that behavior after this year, we may have to implement some kind of change.
Yeah.
But if we don't, we may be fine with it, right?
I feel like the scenario I would be most afraid of for me is, like you say, in those qualifying rounds, we're getting up to 5 hours and 55 minutes, and suddenly everyone knows the game's just going to get called because of timing. I feel like you might start to just see support for the thrones thrown all across the table in every direction. And it's just going to become like the Wild West.
Yeah, I mean that could certainly be a thing, and I'm tentative and excited to see how that meta develops.
Yeah, I'm more interested to see the science of it than like pre-enforce anything. But it is kind of like who knows what these players will decide they're capable of.
yeah, exactly. I want to see how the bullets land this year, and if there is anything that's just way too gamesmanship awful, then we'll address it. But this year, we'll play them as written and see how it plays out.
So looking at kind of TI4 rules and knowing your history of TI3 stuff, is there anything else you foresee being something that might need to be modified? I mean, like I wrote down ideas of just like, would you ever consider like banning a faction or anything like that, or are there other rules that you're kind of they're on ice for you, where you're like, we'll see how this year goes, but in the future I could definitely see us doing new structures to certain things? Yeah,
so in our TI3 tournaments, we did actually ban a faction. We banned the Yisrael.
Of course.
We thought it wasn't fun.
Many players can note how Jolnar are so much better than many other races in TI4, but even that pales in comparison, I feel like, to how good the Yisrael were compared to every other faction in TI3. Yeah,
their ability to pull off a bubble victory was just, it was like, you talk about tiers, right? And they were tier 0.
Exactly.
And the next faction was like
tier 2.
Tier 2. Yeah. If what was the character in Street Fighter that was like crazy and that was completely banned? A Kuma or something like that.
I don't know.
Oh yeah. No, you can.
Yeah. So it was like that, and we banned them. I don't know that we have that quite yet.
Yeah.
With TI4, I mean, Jolnar are in the danger zone for sure.
Sure. But that's still a little bit reliant on the tech objectives hitting the table, right? And I think that's the big qualifier. Yisrael could win with any strategy. It didn't matter what the objectives were. They could score any of them because they could do crazy maneuvers. Jolnar, it's just like, well, if the tech objectives all come out, Jolnar is going to win. But maybe that won't happen. And so you kind of... That's a tough call.
Yeah. And hopefully... we'll just address that with faction selection. You know,
Right.
we can do like a MOBA style banning drafting thing or something like that.
I hope that is something the community at large can come to some sort of agreement on. I think that's going to be like one of Hunter and I's like big goals over the next year, is just like, let's push for some sort of communal agreement on what.
Yeah, like what is the TI answer to that?
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. And I think that could be incredibly fun, particularly in the tournament setting.
Definitely.
Like seeing, you know, how that plays out. Like, you know, what factions am I banning? What faction am I selecting? What that process looks like, particularly with any additional content that might come from Fantasy Flight with more factions. As that tableau of factions grows, what does that process look like? I think that's going to be really fun to see in the future. But this year, again, it's just by the book. First come, first serve. Get lucky, get first pick. See how it rolls.
Yeah. So to kind of start branching away a little bit, we have talked about you a lot on the podcast, and of course you're very vocal in our Discord and on, you know, the subreddit and stuff like that. So I feel like a lot of fans have some sort of an encounter with you, but I feel like it would be nice to maybe now, I feel like we've got all the tournament stuff out of the way. Let's take a moment and let's get to know the real Blarknob. Let's learn who is Michael and what's his deal. So just to kind of quickly, how would you say, since you guys are the ones who kind of started to make a consistent tournament, how would you say tournament play differs from your weekly groups kind of style of play? Because I feel like we have painted you guys as this like cutthroat, they play every week, they don't care about eliminating anybody, and I don't know that we've actually done you guys any sort of service in like telling the truth.
I mean, how true is that? Is it?
Or just these cutthroat monsters that don't have any fun and sit there quietly staring at each other.
For 6 hours, no talking.
Cigarettes, like all right. So the tournament scene, it's kind of weird because since we started running it, we haven't been playing in the tournaments.
Of course, yeah.
So we've kind of got this running commentary going in our head, and one of the things we really try to do in the tournaments, because, you know, we encountered it in tournaments run by other groups and very much disliked it, and that's when the game master or the official had any kind of strategic input.
Ooh.
Oh, right? Wow. Yeah.
Right. So you know, someone asks a rules question and you just answer the rules question.
Yes, definitely.
You know, you don't unintentionally or intentionally give them any kind of advice. So that's one thing that we really try our best to do. We try to be impartial and try just to answer the rules questions and just move the game along mechanically. But of course, we've got our internal commentary running the whole time, and we all have notes about, you know, the different games we GM'd and what player made this crazy move we'd never seen before.
There's a text chain between the three of you that is just nonstop all day. I can't believe that Jolnar did this.
Yeah. I mean, we get to spectate and we get to see things that just don't happen at home, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, you get playing with the same players over and over again, and there are beats that you hit.
Yeah.
Regularly.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, honestly, I want to jump in here because we haven't talked about this yet. That is the role Hunter and I are hoping to fill for the community at large. We're incredibly thankful that you guys have kind of devoted your energy and time to like making sure this tournament is a comfortable and you know, fair experience. And I think it's become our goal to kind of supplement you guys and get your side of the story out there, which is like, yeah, you guys have for years gotten to see how all these other players interact, and if anything, it made all of you guys better players because you get to just see new plays that maybe you've never seen. And so for us, a big part of that is like, let's get in there and let's show everybody what that is, and that's a big part of like what we're hoping to capture with our GenCon footage is like all of that impartial, just like, oh my gosh, did you just see what they did? Isn't that insane? Wow, what a play, or whatever. You know, I think Hunter and I just want to become the sports commentators of this TI tournament.
That would be fantastic. Have color commentary on the TI tournament. I know some of the play that kind of took us as surprise that we weren't used to in our home group was the way that objectives are kind of bartered.
Yes. Isn't that so?
Right?
I mean, we used to do that, and we eventually really put like a stifle to it, but it still sounds like it is so prevalent, and for some people it is like integral to the game, is like your ability to barter objectives between each other.
Yeah, like that really took us by surprise when we started running it, how much of that we saw of people, negotiating with their neighbors, say, oh, well, I want to get this point, and if I take this planet from you and you take this planet from me, we can kind of negotiate out of a war.
Hunter's making such a disgusted face right now.
Oh yeah. Our home table metagame, we blockade points like nobody's business.
Exactly.
Like if we even have an inkling of an idea that, oh, he's going for this secret objective or he's going for that public objective, we do everything in our power to keep anyone from scoring points. But that was a lot looser in the tournament play and a lot freer with those points for people, which was exciting because it was very different.
It is exciting. I will point out to the listeners at home, we're talking to the person who has won or gotten second place in multiple tournaments, and he puts a kibosh on those types of plays. So while in our kingmaking and all those types of episodes, we decided, well, it's up to the player and it's not bad etiquette, it still remains bad strategy because the people who win don't let that crap slide.
Yeah, that's what we do on this show. We invite someone on to leverage their personality to back up our own theories.
Exactly.
That being said, I do actually like trading Support the Throne for another Support
monster.
the Throne. Particularly early.
Yeah, well, that's the
earlier
only
the
time it
better.
makes sense. I'll cede that, like, in the earliest you can do it, the least predictions you can make out of it. The later the Support for the Throne, the dirtier it is.
So says
like
us.
So says us. So what are there any other big ways you would say you feel your group differs from other groups you've seen, especially now that like TI4's happened? And I don't know if you've recognized like a larger influx of people talking on like BGG and the subreddit. Before TI4, I was kind of only active on the subreddit and never really talked on the Board Game Geek forums, but have since become more active. And I was kind of curious if you've seen a larger, since you've been around, the TI community forever, what kind of influx you've seen, and if you've seen kind of any major shifts in player dynamics and how they talk about the game.
I mean, there has been a big influx of new players, that's for sure. Like, the excitement about the new game has been fantastic, and seeing those communities kind of build up again, because having... What did you say, that TI3 had been out for, 13 years?
Yeah, 2005. Wow.
Yeah, so it was getting kind of long in the teeth, and the community was pretty much the same people you saw online most of the time. So getting all this new energy and new ideas in there is super exciting. I mean, one of the things that I've had a lot of fun exploring recently is the Discord and seeing play on Tabletop Simulator. That's been really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm interested to see how the number of games that are able to be played on there might contribute to the meta game and the play styles that develop.
Yeah, I mean, we hear
the volume of games.
Exactly. We hear from multiple players that it's like, Unaligned Magi is playing every day at this point, it seems like. Like, I hear from him.
Oh, yeah, he's an addict, man.
Yeah, he's it's getting kind of scary. If anything, like, Unaligned Magi, we need to talk, buddy.
Slow down, buddy.
You're scaring your family.
But, like, it's getting close to the volume that, like, a computer game might see.
Yeah, and
because of that.
It could evolve as far as, like, the meta. It could evolve much faster than TI3 did, for sure.
Right.
I want to ask a very basic question. Actually, I've got two questions. The first one is just kind of a why Twilight Imperium? Like, why have you been hardcore into this game for this long? And also, because you're maybe the only person we will probably ever have on the show where this question has any meaning whatsoever. What's your favorite edition of Twilight Imperium?
Yeah, so why Twilight Imperium? I've been a science fiction fan since I was a little kid, and I was also a tabletop board gaming fan from my early days. My parents got me into, like, Risk and Axis and Allies.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Similar
the early editions of TI were more or less Axis and Allies in space.
Right.
So, like, TI1, TI2, you didn't have the command counters, you didn't have the threaded turns. You still had the modular board, and you had an objective track instead of the objective cards. So you had to go through
a much more stable win condition. It was just like everyone was gunning for the same thing.
That's right. And so that move from TI2 to TI3 was a watershed. I remember the first night we opened up our copy of TI3, sat down and tried to learn it. We spent about 2 hours, couldn't figure it out at all, and then finally someone understood how command counters worked.
Right.
We completely reset and played a whole game until like 6 o'clock the next morning.
Wow.
And we're just hooked. Yeah. So far TI4 is my favorite edition of the game. I obviously have a huge amount of playtime with TI3 and absolutely loved it, but TI4 is just, to me TI4 is TI3 revised edition.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just better. They took out a lot of stuff that wasn't super well implemented.
Yeah.
And they cleaned things up.
It's so funny too, because when the game was first announced and kind of the rulebook was posted, I saw that as one of the major complaints, was like, oh, this just feels like TI 3.5. It's like, well, that's all we needed. Is like TI 3 was almost a perfect game, except for it was incredibly clunky and there were all these weird exceptions to rules. And so it's like all any of us really ever wanted was just like, can we please clean up the rule book but keep everything else? And like you probably agree with this, because it feels like we're coming from the same point here, is all the rule sets that I included in my TI3 games, every single one of those got kept in TI4, and all the stuff that was like, oh, maybe we'll play with that every once in a while, got left behind. Like the only rule that I would want still kept in is artifacts, but in a way artifacts are still there because there's lots of different types of control planet objectives. So like spiritually, I would say they're still there. So if anything, like I'm playing the same game I played with TI3, but now I don't have to answer a dozen rules questions every single round.
Yeah, I think it's funny the way the designers snuck some of those options into the agenda deck.
Yes, exactly.
They kind of like pirated them in there, and we're like, oh well, we're not going to make it like a full-blown rule set, but we're just going to make them like rider cards.
Right. The
rider cards are just the representatives, or what were they called in TI3? They're just that, a little lighter, but they snuck them into that mechanic.
And you don't need to learn. You don't need to learn a page's worth of like rules explanations to do it. It's just a card that has the same effect.
Exactly. They offload that rules weight to the action card instead of having a whole section of the book that tells you what to do riders. Right. That I love that part, and that design philosophy. You can see that throughout the game.
Right.
One of the other big things that I love about what they did with TI4 is whenever TI3 said no, TI4 says yes.
Yeah, I think that's what we basically like applauded Dane Beltrami to his face in our interview with him, but that like couldn't agree more with that point of just like
let him do it.
Yeah. TI4 is an excellent improv partner. All it says is yes, say yes.
Yeah, so like TI3 said, oh, you can't shoot PDS through wormholes. TI4 said, why not? Go ahead. TI3 said, oh, the SAR can't build when they move. TI4 said, sure they can. Why not? That's their superpower. Why not let them have it?
Right.
And you can see that throughout the game, and I love it.
What, Michael, have you seen? What is a play you've seen another player do at one of your tournaments that really sticks out to you as like, wow, that's crazy, and I'd never thought about that before?
Yeah. Best play of all time as per...
Not a play of the week. Play of all time, forever and ever, by the authority. The authority, Michael.
I've seen a lot of player elimination at the tournament.
Really? Ooh. That's fun.
That's cool.
We had a Ghosts of Creus player in one of the qualifying games completely eliminate the Hakan.
Whoa!
Who were his neighbors to his left, and like it was funny. Like I don't remember all the details, but it was like he killed him and got paid to do it, kind of stuff. It was like he won and won more. Some of the meta we've seen in the qualifying rounds, I don't know what it'll look like this year, but in previous years we've had some people register who were just kind of like, oh, I'd like to play some TI, and sat down at a competitive game, and they got preyed upon, right?
Right, more than they bargained for.
Yeah, so that's some of the elimination we saw in the qualifying rounds. Haven't seen that in any of the championships.
Yeah.
How often does player elimination happen in your like weekly, just you and your friends games?
Oh, it's crazy rare.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
It's
So there you go.
it's
There's
crazy
already
rare.
something we've like misexplained about your group, but just to prove the point of like you can play weekly for 13 years and almost never see player elimination.
Right.
It's just you don't have the incentive to do
I can probably count it on one hand the
Wow.
number of times we saw a player elimination in
Yeah.
TI3. We've seen it maybe twice in TI4 so far.
Dang.
That's
That's even
actually
more
a
than
lot.
I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happened. What? There was
Yeah.
that one game with you with SAR that got
It was
pretty
on the
buck
verge.
wild.
Yeah.
But then that was pretty much it.
Yeah, the SAR are a common faction to get eliminated.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
is what I
That
love
was the
about
case
them,
in
honestly.
TI3
I think
too.
that's just the flavor of them now. Is they're just this on the brink of extinction. That's what it is. They're
They're hanging
the race.
on a prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that impermanence of their docks was always a thing. Like that
Yeah.
was always our big complaint in TI3 was that it was almost like they just had this big handicap and
Right.
and because they couldn't build when they moved, it wasn't actually all that big of a bonus.
No.
to get
Right, you didn't have
moving
incentive
space
to
docks.
move your space docks. You had no incentive to do it because it was not going to help you. SAR played in their pie slice and had no faction advantages. That's how I thought about SAR for the longest time. Is like they actually have no
Yep.
racial advantages.
Yeah, it was like they had that trade good planet thing, and that
Right,
was their deal.
that's Yeah. Well, awesome, Michael. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for outlining some of the tournament. Thank you for hosting the tournament. We are.
Hey,
I
I
cannot
love it.
express how much we are looking forward to being there this year and being
I am
able to
too.
look into it, and especially just knowing like I feel like this will be the first opportunity we have to see how much momentum is behind this new Twilight Imperium community. I think that's
Yeah.
the big thing for us, even in starting the podcast and wanting to do stuff like this, is like we just want to keep pushing people to try to do more. And I think this will be the first time we see if those people are there and ready to respond to that and want to. We find out how many people
Yeah,
want to play
like-
Twilight Imperium.
I want to see people who
Yeah.
disagree with us play in the tournament doing things that we told them didn't work
Yeah,
and win with.
exactly.
That's what
I'm
I'm looking
really-
forward
yeah,
to.
I
It's
want-
something
Oh, yeah.
like,
Oh, yeah.
I listened to the episode and I knew you guys were wrong, and I'm here in
Here it is.
Indianapolis to show you
Yeah.
how wrong you are. That's what I want.
If a Yin Brotherhood player wins
Wins
the
the
TI
whole
tournament,
tournament,
it's
yeah.
just like that will be the greatest. I feel like we have to end the podcast.
That'll be
there
the
because
the
that's-
series
yeah,
finale.
exactly. We did it, folks. That's a wrap.
We packed up.
Yeah, it'll be very satisfying to be proven wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, it most certainly will.
Well, thank you, Michael. I think we're gonna wrap it up there, and we'll see you in Indianapolis in a couple months, bud.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great fun, and this has been a pleasure. You guys are great to talk to.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Michael.
of course.
Thank
you.
Welcome to Space Cat's Goof 'em Ups.
Goof 'em ups.
Goof 'em Ups.
Come on
and
down to Goof 'em Up City.
Missed ups, messed ups, wrongdoings.
That was good. Missteps, must-ups, and... Wow, I can't do it.
Messed
Hold on.
up,
All right.
moose-
Missteps, mess-ups, and wrongdoings with Hunter
Missteps,
Donaldson.
Mess ups and wrongdoings with Hunter Donaldson. Old home on the range, Hunter Donaldson. Yep, we've got some good down-home corrections to some stuff. First one is contractually... this is, of course, is for the flagship episode from last week. How'd you guys like all that dice rolls?
Woo!
We've heard no and yes.
Yes, we have certainly heard good and also not good.
Good.
So
well,
we will modify.
Next time we're gonna do we're gonna roll to speak even.
Right.
We're gonna roll.
Every-
I'm gonna roll charisma to see if we come up with a funny bit at the beginning, and we have -3 each to charisma.
Yep.
So,
It's going to be really good for you.
first errata is from Jada Pake. This is contractually obligated. We do not stand by having to read out any of these words. Obviously, that's what that means.
We are prisoners of Jada Pake's making.
Yes, love it. Which should be the new name of the podcast. Anyways. Jada Pake. The Van Huge is possibly, or is objectively, the best flagship, not the Genesis. The Genesis is the Soul one. The Van Huge is the Yin one. You get where this is going. Let's say you have 17 boxers of varying skill. You know any of the... Okay, yes, this is okay.
One is an infant. One
right.
is Muhammad
No,
Ali.
Stop. Okay, we've got it. So let's say you have 17 boxers of varying skill. You know any of these 17 could win a given fight under favorable circumstances. However, only 16 fighters can lose a fight. One fighter will remain undefeated in every single fight they participate in, no matter what. At best, other fighters can fight him to a draw. Who's the best boxer in the group? Obviously, it's the one that can never be defeated. No boxer can claim to be better. The best they can hope for is to be the equal of the best boxer. They can't be better. Well, thank you so much, Jada, for the boxer analogy. I will say that it was very useful.
Yes.
And
really helped paint that picture for me.
It really painted a strong picture, and we did not just... and we needed that now to see. It might be just as accurate to say that really what happens is that one of the boxers in the middle of the fight beats himself to a bloody pulp along with the other boxer.
I think it is equivalent to...
No, this is what it is. They're in the middle of the fight, and the boxer quits.
Right, it's your
Boxing.
it's your really annoying redheaded childhood friend that you were never actually friends with, but they're the ones who had a Sega Genesis, and you go over to their house, or you go over there to play games with them, and as soon as you're beating them in anything, they just say, "Nope, I don't want to play this game anymore," and they turn it off and they walk away, and they make you feel really awkward for being at their house.
Yeah,
horrible house.
Their house is weird.
Their house smells. It's got a different smell than yours.
Yeah.
You're not comfortable being in the same room as their mom and dad because it's not your mom and dad. This is your first sleepover you've ever been to.
But then the dad doesn't wear pants.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude,
is that
I'm
appropriate
here.
at all? Yeah.
Right.
Like I can see your tighty whities, and I am someone else's child.
Yeah, and he's wearing a big Ed Hardy shirt, and it's got a bunch of stains on it, and he's drinking a beer, and it's like, my dad doesn't drink beer around me.
Exactly.
Yeah, my dad only drinks whiskey.
This is what you
me.
do, Jotapake. This is what the huge van does, is it puts other people in really uncomfortable situations. They're not the best boxer in the group. They're just the ones that are willing to turn off the game.
Also, I get what you're saying, that the boxer can never be defeated, and that's great. But
they can, though. They just take the other person down.
No. Let's give them that.
Sure.
Let's give them that. What if instead you had a boxer that was just so good, just won all the time,
right?
Like never lost,
right?
Because it was such a good boxer,
sure.
Sure.
Yeah, the boxer you're describing that can't lose also only wins due to everyone else around them,
right?
They have the best management team.
It would be more
and they
accurate.
rig fights for them better,
right. It would be more accurate to say that the Van Huge is a boxer that frequently causes a draw.
Yes.
It's like, would you rather win frequently or mostly draw?
I want to say this. Getting away from analogies, the Van Houg never wins of its own accord. Ever. Never, ever. It rolls 2 on a 9. It is a bad ship. It is the worst flagship statistically.
Yeah.
But it has the stupid ability that makes it neutral. We are going off on this, and everyone knows that the end result is we don't agree with Jotapake. Let's move on.
Right.
This is dumb.
And Jada doesn't care that we don't agree. Why did we take that so seriously? We're idiots. All right, next one.
All right. This one is another contractual obligation. We got more space kitties, folks.
Yeah.
The litter box is getting a little full. We got to buy new cat litter. Yeah. This one is from our illustrious Chancellor, In Mac We Trust. In Mac We Trust gave us a long post kind of in defense of the Wrath of Canora. We basically painted the Wrath of Canora as essentially the worst flagship. Mm-hmm. Now, I feel like maybe the point that was not stated well enough for us, or by us, because RoboFish also had some stuff to say on our Board Game Geek Guild. It's not that the Wrath of Canora is a horrible flagship. It's that the Hakan have basically no use for it. Mm-hmm. Most people were very happy to point out that if you compare it to the Sardak Nor flagship, it is worse. It's just worse. You have to pay for a +1, whereas theirs is just an automatic +1. In Mac We Trust tried to say the flexibility of it is what makes it better, but you can't say it's flexible when it is also still just a worse ship. It's still 2 on a 7. Like, by itself, it's just not a great ship. It is improving your fleet in that, yes, you can spend your trade goods not on stuff that is important later, but on a couple hits.
In Mac We Trust's main point is that it gives Hakan the choice to make, essentially. It allows them to leverage their strength in another way. Basically saying, I guess, that if Hakan is controlling the economy, that they can build the flagship to focus on combat.
They can use it.
It is yet another way that Hakan can take their advantage and make it more and more flexible.
Right.
And I think looking at it in that way, there is some value.
There's a little bit of value to it, but it is still something I will almost never buy because, and I think I want to jump ahead to someone else's points, which is, this is quite a doozy of a name. I'm just going to spell it out. JGNYOH58717 said, I do things way more dumber myself. When figuring if a flagship is bad or unbad, I usually just ask myself, is this flagship better now or in the future compared to 2 dreads? While it isn't a perfect comparison, it can help. Turtle Boys almost always end up wanting a flagship at most stages of the game, and the Money Lions almost always want the 2 dreads. The point here is, this is what I agree with completely, is any other faction can just get 2 dreadnoughts instead of a flagship.
Right.
And if your ability is so good or so integral to your other abilities, it might be better than 2 dreadnoughts. The Extra is like the perfect example. The Extra want that flagship more than any other faction on the board. But yeah, 2 dreadnoughts is way better than the Wrath of Canora.
Yeah.
The only exception to that rule would be if you're starting to have a fleet supply issue. Then it's like, okay, I get it. I get why you might need the flagship instead of something else. You've got a lot of money to spend and you want a decent ship.
Or I guess if maybe you're really, like, you're having such a good game as a con that you got trade goods you don't know what to do.
And that way it is the win more
But in that way you should probably save them even for stage 2 objectives.
Right. That's my biggest counterpoint is, like, I don't see that many games where Hakan is just, like, easily paying 16 resources.
I have 40 trade goods.
No, it's like you need to hold on. You should always hold on to money if you can because those stage 2 objectives are no joke.
16 for those stage 2.
It's huge. 10 trade goods just for the actual trade good objective. Like, it's a lot of money, and I would rather hold on to my money for that than, like, to waste it on some hits. I get the argument that, like, when it comes up it's important, but you have to have already spent 8 resources to give yourself the opportunity to have that moment of, like, ooh, if I spend one more trade good, I can score one more hit, and that could be the difference of success and failure. But those are such crazy odds to spend definitely 8 resources on, and then more. It just doesn't become worth it for us, pretty much ever.
Yeah, it's hard to...
I just can't... You can't get me on Wrath of Canora. I'm never going to get it in my games as Hakan. Unless, like we said, if you have the flagship objective, it's not like it's a horrible flagship to have when you have that objective. It will help you win a fight with it and score that objective. That's totally fine. But that was our point, is you only get it when you need it for that. It's not helping you do any other strategy especially well.
Yeah. All right, next one is from...
Boy, you guys got some fun names this week.
XIX Llama XIX.
Oh, you did? That is it.
XIX.
I couldn't decode it.
XIX.
That's it.
Llama XIX.
It's like it's like a username from like 2004.
Yeah.
I mean, I bet they have had this username since 2004.
Right. It's from AOL Instant Messaging.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, fun fact, if you spend 12 resources on Genesis plus 8 fighters, that also hits harder than 12 resources worth of War Sun. Average of 2.8 hits per round versus 2.4 hits.
That is a fun fact.
That is fun.
That's the only reason I brought it in there.
I'm having fun.
That shows how good the Genesis is. Like, the Genesis may be the best ship in the game.
I wish they had given it to
anybody else. Anybody else. I know, it's so annoying.
If they'd given it to, like, Sardak. That would be cool.
That would be really cool.
I kind of just want to, like, splice off some of Soul's abilities and give them to Sardak. That's what I want, actually. Anyways, the last one we've got is from Board Game Geek Guild, and it is from Dear Robofish.
Our dear Robofish. As for the tribes, this is the Yssaril tribes and their flagship. It is indeed a very useful ship. If you'll remember, we categorized the Yssaril tribes' ship as it's just a good ship. Like, it's just such a good ship. Yeah. The ability is almost the least important part of it. Not that I think maybe people thought we said the ability wasn't good.
Yeah.
Which isn't the case, but here is a great reason why the ability is still good. Its real power lies in its potential. Assuming it is cruising with a fleet of dreadnoughts with a screen or a powerful group that stays together, but your opponents must always be prepared that you might detach the flagship and make a run at a critical objective, like their home system. If their home system isn't covered at all times, you can just turn up. Given gravity drive, this has a huge reach. From Mechatol, it can reach anywhere, but even from your pie slice, you can threaten 2 other players. You probably won't, but you might.
Right.
And I think that is really the power that you saw. I mean, the Restarl ship is already great. It helps every fleet it's a part of because it's a truly great ship, and it makes your opponents play against it. Mm-hmm. I still stand by. You probably will never use it to jump through stuff and like score that one thing. You might use it one time in a game, and it might be your winning play. Like again, it's one of those things where it's like that might be the game maker.
Right.
But it's not something you're using a lot. But the threat definitely is there all game. Everyone will always be afraid of that ship just jumping through and taking a plane.
I wish I had capacity 5.
Yeah, I would.
That's what I want.
Yeah, because you want it to be fighters and
I want
a
it
couple
to be really
ground
good.
forces.
Yeah, I want to be able to bring some because I dig what RoboFish is saying, and it is cool to kind of get in your opponent's heads. But I do feel like, I don't know, having your opponent think about that is good. But if they are thinking about that, they probably adequately have enough ground forces on them.
Or one PDS with plasma scoring.
Yeah.
Like, you have to bring 2 fighters or something now.
I wish you could bring a little more.
You can't bring enough ground forces usually to take something. It is pretty easy to put a stop to, but it is still going to take advantage of anything that is weakly defended. And having it near that spot scares that person quite a lot. And that is a huge power. And that's pretty much it. We spent so much of the episode doing just total junk that there wasn't much to errata because the episode itself was probably 20 minutes of material, so not a lot to errata. Or we just nailed it. We're just so good at flagships.
I mean, I think we did nail it.
Yeah.
I think that I choose to believe that what happened was that we know flagships like the back of our hands.
Well, you want to do some rundown?
You can go for Twitter. Space Cats Pod is our Twitter. You can go there for game updates and announcements. Our Facebook is called Space Cats, Space Turtles, and you go there for announcements and questions. We post every week in the Reddit Twilight Imperium for every episode.
We bother everyone who was there just to have a good time.
Right, we bother them, every week. And we're like, give us discussion now. Board Game Geek Guild, we have one.
We sure do. It's
and
there.
You can discuss stuff, and there's a calendar there that gets changed all the time.
Yep.
You can
never correct.
Right.
The calendar is never right.
correct. I'm not even sure why it exists. You can email us at spacecatspturtles@gmail.com, and that is the place that we love for you to send this Imperium Life and Play of the Week stories. We have a Patreon, Space Cats Peace Turtles. If you would like to contribute to us, please do. Help make the podcast better and also help us in our goal to record the GenCon Tournament.
Yeah,
wink,
which
wink.
is what this whole episode was about.
That's the whole thing. Maybe we should have even emphasized that more already, but we haven't. Too bad. You can go to our Discord for fun conversation, but also not fun conversation.
Sometimes really in heated debates. And
sometimes there are hills and people die on them. It's great. I love our Discord. We have Patreon benefits as well. You can rate us on your podcast app, especially please rate us on Apple Podcasts /iTunes. That helps with the show and people seeing it and stuff. And I want to thank some Patreoners real quick. I want to thank illustrious Chancellor In Mac We Trust for upgrading his contribution. I want to thank the Commander. I want to thank Rolo, Ledgerman of the Cones, and Green Squad Leader. Thank you.
Thank you,
Patreoners.
Thank you. We got a fun play of the week. We were gonna do a play of the week from Blarknob about his big play that we always talk up, but the truth of the matter is there's just not enough. It was too long ago. The details of it aren't there anymore, and we can't make it much of a play of the week. So instead, we've got this really good one from Chief Ulf Sark. We've been sitting on this one for a few weeks, and it goes some places maybe you're not expecting. Yeah. It was round 5, and my battle with the necrovirus had been going on for what seemed like ages. My extra scientist had developed nullification field, which of course meant that the necrovirus had nullification field. I was racing for the win and needed every edge I could possibly gain. The public objectives were hard to reach, but I secretly needed to occupy the same space as an empty space dock. The virus swarmed their system like a beehive, but I felt a glimmer of hope when their flagship left the system to fight a sole fleet. I had one cruiser within reach, but with cards to make it a fair fight. I knew that if I go in with just a cruiser, he will know something is up and turn on the nullification field. So I had to bait it out of him. I send my cruiser to another system within reach, and with a large enough fleet to make it seem equally suspicious. I hope to the great turtle god that he doesn't call my bluff. He asks me, "What do you hope to gain from this?" I force a giggle and say, "You'll see." The necro player shrugs and goes, "All right, it's your funeral," and initiates the battle. My heart fell as I produce a smile and fight him with my single cruiser, knowing that the lonesome ship and my entire plan was doomed. Don't it suck when you get your bluff called?
Oh man, when they call my bluff like that and I end up wasting a token.
I love this. Actually happened. I wanted to use this one because this happened to me in a game just 2 days ago.
You did this to
I did.
somebody.
It wasn't with nullification field, but it was we had each other's ceasefires, and he targeted my stuff, and I looked at the board and I said, "You don't really have any fleets that can come there. Are you just trying to burn my thing? Well, you go right ahead and go in that system." He got one planet off me, but he then didn't send a huge, he didn't have the big fleet to send in later, which was obviously the big plan, was to get, it was extra, so I knew his goal was to just get the flagship up in my business.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just so fun. It's the most satisfying thing in the world to just, you know what? I'm not going to use that ability because I can see that you were really planning on me doing anything that isn't what someone expected.
Right.
Even if it doesn't necessarily benefit you that much.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying when they're just like, "No, but weren't you going to do the thing?"
Yeah, it's fun doing things that people don't expect, like turning off the record button.
No, but I don't. Thank you for listening to Space Cat's Peace Turtles. And thanks to Ben Prunty for the use of his music. You can find more at benpruntymusic.com and benprunty.bandcamp.com. Pax Magnifica, Bellum Gloriosum.